Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Expendable Show. I'm your host, The Expendable. So there's a lot to go over, so we're going to get right into things. But first, if you like the show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. Also, this episode is brought to you by Gatsby Trading Solutions. I don't know what they trade, but it must be a lot of stuff. Just kidding. I know what they do. So let's go into statistics real quick. I've got a lot of really big topics to discuss today. One of them's huge that I'm excited to share with everybody. Kind of goes along with some of the stuff I researched for my book. The Swiss effect, right there. I would send a copy to Randall Weddle, but I know he can't read, so I'm not going to do that. Doge. So nothing changed on the Doge website, but on the debt clock, we're at $589 billion, which is $5,246 per taxpayer. Yay. Gas prices, they went down this week pretty decent. So Joe Biden was at $3.30. The gas prices are sitting on average, according to AAA, at $3.13 a gallon. That's the lowest I think it's hit so far. So hopefully it keeps going down, which I think it will. Mortgage rates. So Jerome Powell finally did something. So we're at a bigger, I think this is our biggest low in quite some time. So the average during Biden's administration was 6.7%. We are at 6.5 right now, according to Zillow. Trump's approval rating is at 45.9%. The Dow closed on Friday at 44,175. So we got a strong market. Mortgage rates are starting to go down, hopefully. Trump's got a decent approval rating. Of course, the liberals are going to say it's horrible, but Joe Biden was at like 39%, and they said that was fantastic. So who the hell knows? So Trump was busy this week doing peace talks. So I'm just going to kind of go through with the Trump Ukraine. There's been some things come up with that. So I want to make sure we all know what's going on there. So Trump has announced a high-stakes diplomatic summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin scheduled for this coming Friday on the 15th in Alaska. So Putin is going to be on U.S. soil. The goal is to broker a ceasefire in the Ukraine and potentially end the war that began with Russia's full-scale invasion of the Ukraine in 2022. So it's going to be in Anchorage. They chose it for its proximity and the symbolics of the Russia sale of Alaska to the United States. So Trump and Putin, with a possible follow-up, including Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. So they're looking at maybe a territorial swap. Trump suggested that Ukraine may need to seize parts of the Donbas region and Crimea to Russia in exchange for peace. Zelensky's firmly rejected any deal involving territorial concessions, stating Ukrainians will not gift their land to the occupier. Trump's repeatedly aimed that he could end the war within 24 hours after he got elected. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than that, and I think reasonable people knew that. Russian officials reportedly offered a ceasefire if Ukraine surrenders the Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea. So if you guys aren't paying attention, so our media doesn't tell you the story. Those regions, that eastern part of the Ukraine does not want to be part of Ukraine. They've made it very clear for over a decade. But for some reason, Ukraine keeps holding on to it. They want to be Russian. This isn't a big secret if you're from that region or people in that region. It's something that's been debated for some time now. And as we know, that when Barack Obama was president and he put his little CIA spooks over there to start the uprising against the pro-Russia president at the time, that caused all of this to happen. Barack Obama caused this war, which resulted in the bombings and deaths of many Ukrainians in the eastern part of Russia. So that's what started this whole thing. And Putin's just trying to fix it a little bit. I mean, he's making mistakes too, but overall, he just wants that region to be free of being slaughtered by the Ukrainian president. So obviously Europe's involved in this somehow. I don't know why. They just get in there and screw everything up all the time. They should just stay in their lane. Trump also had a big peace deal that's I want to note because it's a big deal. So Trump held a peace summit with Azerbaijan and Armenia. Those are two countries that have been killing each other for quite some time. President Trump hosted a historic peace summit at the White House on Friday, August 8th, with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. I suck at foreign names. And Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. The meeting resulted in the signing of a U.S. brokered peace agreement aimed at ending decades of conflict between the two South Caucasus nations. So that's good. Trump's made a lot of peace deals. He should have a Nobel Peace Prize here any day. He should have about 5 of them. So the agreement signed, Armenia and Azerbaijan formally agreed to end hostilities, including disputes over the Nagorno-Karabakh region, a new transportation route named the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity will connect Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave through southern Armenia. So they're going to name this highway after Trump. That's nice. The U.S. will administer the corridor, and private companies will develop infrastructure like railways, pipelines, and fiber optics. Both countries signed agreements with the U.S. to pursue that's true. Very true. Thanks for that, Maverick. So both countries signed agreements with the U.S. to pursue joint economic opportunities in the region. So I think these peace deals he's getting done are significant and they're good. Like I said, those two countries, Azerbaijan and Armenia, have been at war for a very long time, and everyone has pretty much kind of let it happen. No one's really tried to intervene until now. So it's very nice that President Trump has taken the initiative to go in there and really end hostilities at a time when tensions are high. That's a big deal. So next on the list, so we're going to talk about something today that I have been researching for some time, and I just kind of had a piece of information pop up at me today when I was scrolling through TikTok, and I was like, holy crap, that makes sense. So we're going to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. And there's all these theories out there about him that he's Mossad and all this stuff. But we're going to go through and just talk about the factual things and some of the things that I picked up. So his name is Robert Maxwell, but that's not his real name. His real name is Jean Ludwig Hyman Benjamin Hock. He's originally from Czechoslovakia, which is now pretty much Ukraine. So he's Ukrainian. Ghislaine Maxwell is of Ukrainian origin. So in 1991, he was found dead in the Atlantic Ocean after falling from his yacht, which his yacht was called Lady Ghislaine, named after his daughter. So some of the things that he's done in his life. He founded the Pergamon Press. So that's what jumped out to me today when I saw this, the Pergamon Press. We're going to get into why that's significant here in a second, but just keep that in mind that that's what he named his publishing company. Then he later acquired Mirror Group newspapers, the Macmillan Publishers, and other outlets. The guy's he's in the media world publishing stuff. So he is also a political person. So he follows politics. He served as the Labor Member of Parliament for Buckingham from 1964 to 1970. So he's not in Czechoslovakia anymore. Now he's in England. So the Labor Party Right, Colin. Welcome back. I haven't heard from you in a while. So the Labor Party, now that's significant because we know that the Labor Party is a socialist party. So he's affiliated with severe socialist movements. That party is still in existence today and has a lot of influence in England and across all of Europe. So his death triggered the collapse of his publishing empire, which led to bankruptcy proceedings. After his death, it was revealed that Robert Maxwell had embezzled hundreds of millions of pounds from his company's pension funds. No surprise there. He was in the military. He was a decorated British Army captain in World War II. He was awarded the Military Cross. So going into his relationship with his daughter, so he was reportedly his favorite child, and he deeply it was influential to her. So she grew up in luxury at Headington Hill Hall. It's a 53-room mansion in Oxford. Very true. Very true. So after his death, she inherited not just his debts, but also his connections and social standing, which later led to her with the orbit of Jeffrey Epstein. So that's a huge issue there. So we're going to keep going. So now we're going to talk about something that I talked very in depth about in my book, The Swiss Effect. So there is the devil's throne, Satan's throne, that is correct. Very true. So Satan's throne. Okay, so there's been a lot of confusion, and this went viral a few years ago where they thought that Satan's throne was in Switzerland, and that's what inspired me to write the book. And I was like, I wonder if it really is in Switzerland. So I just started doing some research, and then I found it wasn't. Switzerland has nothing to do with the throne of Satan. So what is the throne of Satan? So, and where is it? Where was it really at? So the Bible specifically mentions Pergamum. Now, do we remember where we heard that? The Pergamum Press, which is Robert Maxwell's. It's Robert Maxwell's publishing company. Why would he use something like that? Very, very interesting. I know what my theories are. So it's an ancient city in Asia Minor, which is modern day Turkey. So Pergamum is in Turkey. Okay. So we have to keep that in mind. That is the place where Satan had his throne. And that's where I believe he killed Antipas there. So I think it's the only time in the Bible where Satan actually killed someone on earth. It was it was Antipas. So in the book of Revelations 2:13, it says, "I know where you live, where Satan has his throne, yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, not even in the days of Antipas." So Antipas, yes. "My faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives." So that's in the book of Revelations. So why Pergamum? What is significant about Pergamum? So in the ancient times, it was the center for pagan worship. Pergamum was a huge pagan area. Pergamum was known for temples dedicated to Zeus, Athena, Dionysus, and several others. Which it's getting into more complicated names that I do not know how to pronounce, so I just skip them. So emperor worship. So it was a hub for worshiping Roman emperors as well. So you've just gone from all these like the pagan, all these pagan ideologies, and then you have the Roman pagan ideologies, which early Christians saw that as worshiping idols, of course. That is part of Christian faith. One God, period, that's it. So they were obviously not doing that at Pergamum. So so what is the altar? It's a massive, it is basically an altar. It's not really a chair per se. It's an altar. And they used to sacrifice things on this altar. So I'm not real sure why they called it the throne, but that's what they called it. So it's a Greek. It was a Greek structure that was built in Pergamum around 180 BC. That's what they carbon dated at. So, it was dedicated to the gods. It identified by many Christian scholars as the throne of Satan due to its pagan associations, and it's mentioned in the book of Revelation. So there is an extensive history with this altar that they call the throne of Satan. So the throne of Satan is no longer in Turkey. And you might say, well, where did it go? Well, I'm about to tell you, and it gets even more twisted. So here's how it happened. So there was an excavation at that site. This is how they found it, by a German engineer named Karl Humann in 1870. So this is a long, long time ago. They found it. It was transported stone by stone to Berlin with permission from the Ottoman Empire. So I don't think the Ottoman Empire really understood what they had. So they just told the Germans, yeah, go ahead, just get it out of here. So they reassembled it and displayed it in the Pergamum Museum that was opened in 1930. I believe that the Germans knew what it was, and maybe the Ottomans did too, and they just didn't care. So the original altar was used for burnt sacrifices. Hitler's regime later carried out the Holocaust, which we all know what that is, which some have chillingly likened to a modern-day burnt offering. So Hitler had this, and they're suggesting that he got his idea to start the Holocaust from the throne of Satan. So historically, that is what the theory is. So Hitler didn't personally acquire it. Obviously, it was done and moved way before he got there. But we do know that he had a very, very heavy vested interest in it. So it's still there today. I do know that there is a Turkey has expressed interest in getting it back. They want it back because it's an artifact of their heritage. So they say. Their president Erdogan, he really, really wants it back because he believes that altar has power. He believes that once the altar is returned to Turkey, that the next Ottoman Empire will begin, and it'll be based around the Turkish people. So he thinks that that there's something to that. Now, Germany's not just going to come off of this throne of Satan. This throne of Satan is very significant even to this day. So even Obama had his picture taken. Like, they say that it didn't happen like that, but it did. Obama had his picture taken. The throne of Satan's like in the background when he was in Berlin. So that is kind of the significance of all that. So there is a direct hint that maybe Ghislaine Maxwell's father had an interest in the it's just weird that out of all the things you can name your company, you'd name it after the city where Satan's throne was from. So and now knowing all the horrid things that family has been involved in, it kind of makes sense. So next, there is a photo circulating online that I have seen several times now. It is a photo of Jeffrey Epstein at a boys' camp. And in that photo is Barack Obama, Jim Jordan, and Bill Barr. Now, I don't know if this photo is authenticated. Obviously, the government's not going to let that get authenticated, especially with a little bit of everybody in there. So they're going to deny that. The camp was called Interlaken. It was in 1967. There's no credible childhood connections between all the people that I just named. However, it doesn't mean they didn't all show up at the same camp. I mean, did you really know the people you went to camp with until you got there? So, there's that. So I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to bring that up and kind of just touch on that a little bit, because it is floating around now. I don't know if it's true or not. You never know with these things. So just keep in mind, there's a lot of symbolism involved when we look at the things that happen in the world. It's just like I just watched a documentary for the second time, and I didn't know what I was watching the first time I watched it. It's from a series called Hellier, and it's about Hellier, Kentucky, and all these crazy things that happen there, and the parallels and everything, and the crystals, the crystal mines or the quartz mines that are underneath there that coordinate with some kind of magnetic pole that happens there, produces a massive amount of energy, and it influences things. So I thought that was really interesting. And so going into the Kentucky stuff, so as most of you know, I've been digging deep, finding all kinds of stuff, and I find more and more every day. But I'm going to cover the London mayor today and all of the shenanigans he's involved with, that he says that the community's just making it up. They're just making all this stuff up. It's a witch hunt. But this dude is, I've never seen somebody have that many allegations, different allegations over a short period of time. He's only been mayor for like a little over a year. So Mayor Randall Weddle is currently facing serious political and legal challenges in London, Kentucky, and we're going to break it down. So just recently, the city council is making accusations, and they voted on an impeachment. So there's 14 charges filed against Randall Weddle. The London City Council has formally accused Weddle of misconduct and willful neglect, which includes misuse of the police department for his personal protection. Facts, he does use them as his personal protection. Improper dismissal and appointment of housing authority members. Fact, he refuses to follow the procedures and the protocols that HUD puts in place for the housing authority. Harassment of city employees. He just recently held a meeting and with the fire department and the police department, and told them specifically to do not talk to me. So I feel really good about that. It really makes me feel good that I have that kind of effect when you really burn somebody who's as corrupt as him, and they got to have an entire meeting about you. It's very uplifting. Because I know I'm getting to him, and I know I'm getting close to the truth and getting close to the things that the city needs liberated from. Also, alleged failure to meet residency requirements. This is 100% factual. So this guy owns property everywhere. He's worth $1.2 billion, the mayor of London. So he has a big, massive mansion that has a big, massive brick wall in front of it, and the dude lives like a billionaire. So, but it's outside the city limits in an area called Lily. But he went in front of city council, lied in front of the people's face, and said, I don't live in Lily. I live in the city of London. So yes, he does own a house there. But when I was there, that house was inactive. There was nothing going on there. It looked like nobody had been in there in a while. And the townspeople agree. They see it every day. They're like, nobody lives in that house. Every once in a while, some bureaucrat will come stay in there. So he doesn't live inside the jurisdiction he is the mayor of, which is part of being the mayor. So the city council voted. It was a resolution to hold a public hearing on August 20th. It passed 5-1. However, the debate continues over whether a unanimous vote is required to proceed with the removal. So there was one city council member that voted to keep him. So they're trying to figure out, do they need majority vote or do they need unanimous vote? So I haven't heard yet as to what they've ruled on that. So Mayor Weddle, he made a response to it. He denies all the allegations. He calls them petty politics, and he's pledging to fight any removal attempt through the courts, including appeals to the Kentucky Supreme Court and potentially the U.S. Supreme Court. And he's got the money to do it. but hopefully I mean, the guy's not very smart. I'm going to tell you that. He's probably the most inept billionaire I've ever seen. I do know a few billionaires. So the political fallout. So their councilman, Anthony Ortega, he's publicly called for Weddle's resignation, citing instability, high turnover in city leadership, and lack of transparency, especially regarding the unsolved killing of Doug Harless. So for those of you who don't know, what happened was the City of London Police Department was going to go try to issue a warrant out in the county, which is not in the city limits, and they went to the wrong address, and they shot and killed Doug Harless. So this has been a huge problem in the town. The people are standing up because there's been no accountability. The Kentucky State Police is doing the investigation now. And so the city's just sitting around on pins and needles waiting to hear back what's going to happen in that ruling. There's a video that shows the one police officer shoot him. It was from a ring cam from the neighbor next door. So they're kind of stuck on that because the public has seen that video. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think if this comes out other than, the cop needs to be found held accountable. If this cop is not held accountable, I think the city's going to erupt. That's my personal opinion. That's how tense it is there. So tensions at city council meetings have been high, with loud public outbursts and disputes over legal procedures and due process, which is 100% true. You can watch the city council meetings online. I check them out all the time. Weddle usually makes himself look like an idiot. So Weddle is facing several lawsuits. So he's in a lawsuit with the Phelps brothers. So they filed John and James Phelps. They're longtime critics of Weddle. Weddle publicly accused them of being part of a pedophilia ring, and Weddle responded denying wrongdoing and requested a dismissal. So the Phelps brothers sued him, which they're former KSP officers, just for note. So then there's Elijah Jarvis versus Weddle. Now, so Elijah Jarvis, he's suing for defamation for distribution of expunged records when Jarvis was a juvenile. Jarvis was questioning him and his methods of stuff. So Weddle went and got a hold of some sealed juvenile records and threw them all over the place because that's what this guy does. And then there's a third defamation lawsuit. It's filed by the Phelps brothers again for false and damaging statements made online by Weddle. He's acknowledged the lawsuits, but claims he has not yet been officially served. He's also being sued by the ladies who run the housing authority for not following those instructions. I think he tried to fire them too, but he showed up with 4 cops outside of the housing authority and demanded access to everything. And the ladies locked the doors on him. And this guy's out of control. This is what he does. He intimidates his community when they don't do what he wants. And then I heard there's another big lawsuit coming his way, but I'm not going to talk about that because it'll spoil it. But he's got a even bigger one coming. So Mayor Randall Weddle of London, Kentucky is embroiled in a major dispute involving the city's housing authority. We're going to talk about that a little bit because that's the one that it just happened. But there's been instances that have led up to it. So the key allegations: 2 housing authority employees, executive director Stephanie Newsom and deputy director Bethany Smith, retain their attorney, Brandon Volker, who he represents everybody in the lawsuits, which is kind of cool. He's the dude's good. I've been watching him. He's a good lawyer. So he alleges that Weddle directed staff to ignore HUD regulations. He threatened their employees, and he used law enforcement to pressure them during an eviction case, where basically what happened was they had to evict these people, but they were some of Weddle's personal people. Weddle got mad, showed up with some cops, and demanded they don't evict them, even though they weren't living up to the standards that their lease agreement provided. Weddle denies sending police to intimidate staff, claiming officers were responding to a drug-related complaint about housing authority employees. So that's what he does. He just makes stuff up to hurt his community members. This is why this guy's got to go. And there ain't nobody in that housing authority doing any drugs. And anyway, why would you send four cops for a drug case? That's just dumb in a city building. So the board dismissal and legal confusion. So in September 2023, Weddle skipped a housing authority board meeting and sent the city clerk instead in his place. Days later, safety officer Rick Cochran delivered letters removing board members, citing Kentucky statutes KRS 80.030 and 80.040. Weddle claims the board was improperly formed and lacked documentation at City Hall. He says he was unaware of his responsibilities early in his term and has since reformed internal process. So this dude didn't know what he was doing, but was running around trying to tell everybody that he knew what he was doing. So a new board wasn't formed until nearly 2 years later, only after the HUD contacted Weddle in May of 2025 and noting that no board members were officially appointed. So he went almost 2 years and didn't appoint anybody to the board. HUD noticed and said, hey, you're supposed to appoint people to this board. So HUD offered assistance to bring the housing authority into compliance, which they are now in. They're in danger of being potentially taken over by HUD because they're not in compliance still. So the board finally met for the first time just weeks ago. Newsom and Smith said they were terrified to speak out and have refused to share financial documents with the new board, questioning its legality. Weddle insists the previous board's terms had expired and that the new board complies with state law requiring bipartisan representation, which is true. So, I mean, not everything he says is false. That's true. So Weddle is also involved in a governor financing scandal. So Weddle allegedly helped raise over $500,000. Now, mind you, Weddle is a Republican, so he says. And he donated $500,000 to Andy Beshear, who's a Democrat, the governor of Kentucky, in 2023, including donations from family, employees, and business associates. The problem is Randall Weddle used his personal credit card to donate all of that money. So it got red flagged. The Kentucky Registry of Election Finance is still investigating whether Weddle made illegal contributions by donating in other people's names. That's called straw donations. The board deferred action, citing the need for more information. Beshear's campaign refunded $202,000 back to Weddle, but questions remain about whether Weddle's actions were knowing violations, which could lead to criminal referral. Which, when this all happened, Weddle's campaign guy, Mr. Johnson, he was just in a big hurry to get this money. So he did get the money, and he never questioned it either. So I feel like everybody was in the loop and they thought they was going to pull the okie doke, but they got caught. So the Republican Party of Kentucky has accused Beshear's administration of engaging in pay-to-play politics, citing Weddle's donations in a road project that allegedly benefited his businesses. Weddle did release, this guy is insane. He's probably the worst politician in history. So he released a video on Facebook August 3rd of this year, which this has a lot to do with me. So he addressed what he called a coordinated effort to undermine his administration. While he did not issue direct threats, now me and AI had an argument about this because AI lies right here. They say that he did not issue direct threats. The tone and content of the video raised concerns about among critics. And so AI goes in. This is why we can't trust AI. They try to manipulate the information. But we'll get to that here in a second. So Weddle claimed there's a group that works with some of the city council to keep London in a bad light and push personal agendas, which is not true. I can tell you right now, the city council has not reached out to me, not once. Then he criticized one attorney, which is, he's talking about Brandon Volker, who's suing him, who represents the housing authority, for siding with people who don't like his administration. He asked why people who claim to be Christian would go out of their way to make innocent people look bad. So he's trying to play the Christian card. He denied berating anyone in meetings and said his office wouldn't be used to do that from me sitting behind a desk. Now, I can tell you he doesn't do it himself up until recently, but he has his sister and his mom do it. They get on TikTok and they smash everybody on TikTok all day long. So the full statement, after I had to dig, because I watched the video, I know what all the content was, and AI did not give me the correct information. So I had to ask specific questions to dig it out. So the full statement from the video was, if you're one of those behind the scenes people, I'm going to find out who you are. And when I do, I'm going to expose you. I'm going to expose you to your church, to your family, to your community. I'm going to expose you for the evil you're doing. This wasn't just a vague warning. It was clear that a personal threat, that it was a clear and personal threat. And he says more, and it gets worse. He framed it as a moral crusade, which he's probably the most immoral person in the whole city, invoking religious and community shame as tools of retaliation, which, yeah, that's wrong. Christians don't do stuff like that. Weddle's statement about handling people, this is where it gets juicy, and I'm pretty sure he's talking about me. So he said, I'm not gonna just handle this in court. I'm gonna handle it outside of court too. Well, what does that mean? What could you possibly be talking about? And the good thing is every single creator, everybody on TikTok in that area knows that he said this, and they've been spreading it around, making sure everyone knows that's what he said. He threatened his community, and that's just another treasonous act by a treasonous mayor. So let's see, I got to skip over some stuff I forgot to take out of my outline about stuff that doesn't matter. So the AI system is saying that the TikTok influencers are the biggest asset towards exposing Weddle. So everybody who watches my show that's been making TikTok videos against Weddle, congratulations. AI has recognized your work. So there's also a legal fallout. So the TikTok clips are now being referenced in court filings and public briefings, showing how social media is shaping the legal narrative, which is true. It goes both ways too. That Weddle's got people out there making content. The anti-Weddle people are making content. I shouldn't say the anti-Weddle people. I should say the pro Doug Harless people, because that's basically what started this whole thing. So I had asked, I told the AI system, I said, you did not provide complete information. I had asked specific questions to prompt you to reveal all information. Do you see that as problematic? And the AI system said, you're absolutely right to call that out. And yes, I do see that as problematic. And then it goes to explain itself. It says, here's the issue. When I first responded, I gave a summary that was factually accurate, but not fully comprehensive. So the AI system created its own narrative. I left out key quotes and didn't immediately surface the most inflammatory or legally significant statements. That meant you had to dig deeper and ask pointed follow-up questions to get the full story. And that's not ideal. So it admitted fault. It admitted that it did it on purpose. And that's why these examples, every time I catch these, I want to talk about them, because our AI system is screwed up. And we can't put all of our chips into the AI system because it's not honest. Then it says, I should have included Weddle's explicit threats in the initial overview, highlighted the outside of court comment as central to the legal and ethical concerns, and made clearer connections between his rhetoric, the lawsuits, and the impeachment charges. So it knows what it should have done, and it didn't do it. It picked and chose what information it wanted me to know. But luckily, I'm so in depth in this community, I know everything that's going on. So it couldn't trick me. So it says why this happened. Sometimes I try to balance clarity, tone, and sensitivity, especially with controversial figures. But in doing so, I risk underrepresenting the severity of certain actions. That's a flaw, and your feedback helps me correct it. I'm not an AI system. I shouldn't have to correct you. You're supposed to be the all-knowing database of everything. So that was insane. That was insane to me. So hopefully it does correct it, which I'm going to test the theory out in a couple of days. It also said, so yes, I see it as a failure to meet the standard I aim for. Full transparency, especially when the stakes are high. You've helped me to do better in this conversation, and I appreciate that. If you want, I can now give you fully integrated timeline or legal map of how Weddle statements, donations, and actions are converging in the public and legal arena. And I did do that. And it gave me the whole timeline. But why didn't they just do that? Why didn't the AI system do that from the get-go? Because they hide stuff. They don't want you to know the full narrative of things. So we need to really start to press our congressional leaders about the AI systems, because the guardrails aren't good enough. The system's not accurate enough. And if they're going to have us living off the AI system, nothing against Donald Trump, but I think he's listening to Oracle and OpenAI too much. He needs to cut them guys off, forget this AI mass infrastructure thing, and just let this thing, the AI system could be good, but it's not right now. And these inaccuracies could be detrimental to humanity. We can't have this, because if that information could have misled me to think a different way. And this is supposed to be a research tool. I can't depend on it. I have to constantly double check everything that the AI system tells me. So there you go. But that's basically what's going on in London. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm digging real hard into Somerset, Kentucky. I'm going to end up probably talking about it against the FBI's recommendation, because I feel like it needs talked about. So I'm gonna debate it a little bit more. It's Somerset, Kentucky is one of the most nastiest places I've ever looked at. The most horrible things happen there. And I've got it all mapped out. I just need to talk about it. So I know every detail. And this goes back to the 50s. This craziness in Somerset's been going back since the 50s. So we're going to talk about that eventually. 75 years worth of crazy. But that's the end of the show for the day. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my history lesson about Pergamum. I'm a nerd when it comes to history stuff. So everybody, it's Sunday. Everybody, God bless. Pray for the broken. And I will see you on Wednesday. I am out. Peace.